Hello, welcome to the School Improvement Institute video for Steering Team Intro. My name is Sue Reynolds and I am the president of the American Student Achievement Institute. First of all, thank you for agreeing to be on your school improvement steering team. The fact that you're giving your time and your energy to serve on the steering team is a really good indication that you care about your community's young people and that you're sincerely committed to raising student achievement in your school. And I really appreciate that, and we just wanted to start with a thank you for agreeing to serve in that capacity. So, as a steering team, you have two first tasks. One is to become familiar with SI2, and then two is to delegate tasks among your steering team members. Because we're going to take the time today to become familiar with SI2, this video will be a little longer than the ones that we will normally provide for you each month. But there's a lot to cover today, and we're just really eager to get started. So this is part of a video series. This is the topic today is on steering team task assignment, and then you can see as we work through the vision to action process, we'll be discussing with you different topics each month. So let's begin then with our intro to SI2. So first of all, let's look at cycles and services, and really in this section we're just introducing some vocabulary. So the vision to action process that you'll become involved with is actually a process that we cycle through every 3 years. And Cycle 1 schools are schools that are creating or updating their school improvement plans. So they're really digging in deeply into all 5 components: the vision, goals, root causes, interventions, and preparation. So every 3 years, schools will cycle back into becoming a Cycle 1 school. So every 3 years, you'll take a very in-depth look at your school improvement plan. Then, in year 2 and 3, or Cycle 2 and Cycle 3, what your school will do is not look at every component of your school improvement plan. The vision doesn't change from year to year, so we only look at that every 3 years. But each year in Cycle 2 and 3, we'll be looking at your goals, we'll be looking at updated student achievement data and then updating your goals. We will verify that your root causes, or the things that are getting in the way of achievement in your school and community, haven't changed drastically since the previous year, but will not do the huge root cause analysis again. We'll just verify that, that there haven't been any changes. But then we'll dig into interventions big time in year 2 and 3, and we'll look to see, are your interventions making a difference? Are adult practices changing in your school, and as a result of that, are students performing at a different level? And then we of course have to look at preparing for each school year as you continue to implement your interventions. So each year we do preparation. So so those are the cycles, and this year in 2014 and 15, all of our schools are going to become Cycle 1 schools. You're either a brand new school, and in which case we're going to call you a new school, or if you're a school that has been involved with SI2 for a number of years, but we're rotating you this year into Cycle 1, we're calling you a refresher school. So basically all of our schools are going to get a chance to either start and create their school improvement plan for the first time, or we're going to really take a look at refreshing your organizational structure and refreshing your plan. We've already communicated with the refresher schools why we're doing this. As you know, we're introducing a lot of major improvements in SI2 this year, specifically in the root cause data study. So we want to make sure that that all of our schools have had a chance to benefit from that new and improved root cause study. Okay, so then another thing where we just kind of want to be on your radar is that this year, as in past years, there was a menu of services that each school could select from. All schools participating in SI2 are receiving the basic services, which are these training videos, the small learning communities or the webinars. They have access to our steering team manual, and each of them has a customized online school improvement system. So those are the basic services. And then almost all of our schools decided to opt into the additional support. So in addition to the basic services, you've decided that you would like to submit your work to us for review, and our staff will review your different work as you progress through school improvement. We'll provide you written feedback, and then we'll also give you feedback on whether or not your school is meeting our standards for school improvement, which are very rigorous, and then also on behalf of DOE, we'll verify if you've met the standards for PL 221, and then as an outside third-party review, we'll also look at the school improvement requirements in Title in a DOE school improvement and turnaround, and just make sure that you're meeting those things as well. So, and then the other things that schools that participate in our support services receive is friendly reminders, or I just like to call it nagging because that's what it is. But it's just if we start to see that school improvement is falling off your plate, we'll be there calling you and just making sure that we're nudging a little bit to make sure that everything's continuing to happen. And then the final thing is on-call support and coaching. With these additional services, you have access to our staff, and we're very committed to make sure that we're there available for you when you need us. So again, almost all of our schools have opted to receive both types of services. And really another way to look at this is the stuff in the basic system is our stuff we're letting you, that you're using, and then the stuff on the right, the things on the right, are our people. So left stuff, right people, and from our perspective, it's great when you have both of those. Okay, so let's now dig into what is SI2. So first of all, what SI2 is not. We are not a one-size-fits-all model. We don't believe that there is a one-size-fits-all model. If there were, every school would already be doing it, and achievement would be wonderful in every school. So we don't believe that there is a one-size-fits-all model. So instead of being a model, we're providing a process where you are going to discover the model that's going to work in your school. And I can almost guarantee you that of all the schools that are participating in SI2 this year, every single one of you is going to come up with a different model, which makes sense. You all have different communities, different students, different strengths, different challenges. So it makes sense that you all come up with a model that works for you. So the process that we use is called Vision to Action, and we'll go through it in a little bit more depth in a few slides, but basically it's the steps are on the right. And then the one thing I wanted you to see in this slide is how much we use data to inform decision making. So before we set your academic goals, we're going to look at data. Before we identify your root causes or the areas that are getting in the way of achievement, we're going to look at data to help inform those decisions. And then when we're evaluating the impact of your interventions, this happens more in cycle 2 and cycle 3, but when we're evaluating the impact, we're also going to study data. So we're a very, very data-rich process. There are lots of different types of schools that participate in SI2, different locales, different levels. We work with schools that are very high achieving, and we work with schools that are currently very low achieving. Schools that are 100% free and reduced, schools that are very low percentage of that, very affluent schools, schools that have high minority, schools that have low minority. So the reason that SI2 works in all these different kinds of schools is, again, because it's not a one-size-fits-all model. Different schools will go through the process and discover what they need in their situation. So you might just be interested in knowing what others have had to say about SI2 and the work that we've been doing for the past 20 years. First of all, we've had some significant national recognition. We've never sought this recognition, but organizations will discover our schools, and then our schools will tell them about us. So, or different groups. So, in this case, it ended up that the Indiana Department of Education let the Council of Chief State School Officers know about our work, and in their policy brief, one of their initial policy briefs that they did on school improvement, we were one of 8 school improvement initiatives across the country that they mentioned. And I was really pleased when they did their homework on us. They discovered that we are a process that embraces working through resistance, and we'll talk about that a lot in the small learning communities that we do this year, about how to handle resistance and give you some tips for how to do that. So anyway, so that's one national group that's recognized us. The Annie E. Casey Foundation also did a brief on connecting schools, families, and communities. They were working with one of our schools and discovered that the parents in that community and the businesses in that community were working with the school in a different way than what they normally saw. That in this school, that the community was really aligning with the core instructional program and engaging in the core instructional program, and that's something else that we really hang our hat on. So we were very pleased that they saw the value in that in our work. And then lots of participant testimony. SI2 provided a structured process that engages staff, helped us to be less isolated. We now work collaboratively with parents and community in discovering solutions for raising student achievement. Helped me understand the power that a community can have in making positive change in our educational goals for the child. I'm very pleased that this was a school that worked hand in hand with their Economic Development Council, which we're going to encourage you to do. I'm very pleased with that comment that came to us unsolicited from one of the steering team members. What I've enjoyed the most is seeing the process become the ownership of the group. I feel I'm a better person for having finally something important enough for me to lead. I loved this quote and feel very honored that this teacher felt that the work that they were doing on the steering team was something that was so important that they were a better person for having led it. I just thought that was pretty cool. The ASA staff members have provided exceptional support and guidance through the process, and that's something I mentioned just a few minutes ago. We really pride ourselves in the support that we give you. All of our staff members have been educators, and we have all been on school improvement teams. And I think at times were frustrated in the schools when we would call a consultant and not be able to get a phone call return for 3 or 4 days. And so we really pride ourselves in being there when you need us. So another question you might be asking is, okay, if I'm going to invest my time in this, does this work? Well, you know, all those nice things that people said about us was, you know, nice, but the bottom line is, and what we want, what our organization wants to evaluate is, are there more students in the schools that we work with who succeed at a rigorous level? And this is some of the early work that was done to really assess if our process was making a difference. This is data from a fellow that did his dissertation on our process. And what he found is that while SI2 and non-SI2 schools in the beginning will start out with a pretty similar increase in the percentage of passing I-STEP tests from year to year. After 1 year of implementation, that percentage starts to spread, and after 2 years of implementation, he found a really quite significant difference in the increases from year to year in the percentage of passing I-STEP tests. Here's some other data that we look at comparing, again, the increase in the percentage of passing I-STEP and, in this case, also end-of-course assessment tests between SI2 schools, and then in this case we looked at all schools in the state, including SI2 schools. And again, we saw that there is greater rates of improvement in SI2 schools. So again, this is data that makes us pleased. Like you are working hard in your schools, we feel like we'll work hard too. And if this data weren't like it was, it would make us question the time we're putting in. But when we see this data, we think, oh my gosh, all the hours that we put in is worthwhile. And I think as you start to look at the data from your school, you'll find that as well as you're looking at your individual school's data. Also want to let you know we do give a Top Gainer Award each year for our schools. We give it at our statewide conference. And there's certain benchmarks that we're looking for the Top Gainer Award in terms of an increase in the percentage of passing I-STEP tests or end-of-course assessment tests in the school. And we initially started awarding plaques, but then we thought, why not award a banner? And then in your gym, you can hang those banners up right along with your athletic banners. So we just wanted to be able to have you show your community that you are a school on the move, that you are increasing and improving each year. The slide on the right is at Logansport High School. As soon as you walk in the door, the first thing you see is their Academic Improvement Awards. So I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, so now let's look at the organizational structure. You are a member of the steering team. So the steering team, we have put together, or the person in your building who initiated SI2 in your school put your steering team together very carefully. We have experimented with many different steering team makeups over the 20 years we've been doing this. And this makeup we have found really works. So principal, 2 teachers, and in the middle school and high school we would like one of those teachers to be a math teacher because math is such a gatekeeper course. Counselor, a parent, and then somebody who's associated with economic development. So that could be somebody from your county or your community's economic development council, or somebody from your chamber of commerce, or someone in a business who's responsible for human resources and holds a position that's a high-level position. So your school improvement steering team are really the school improvement managers. You're making sure that the data is collected, that discussions are happening, that decisions are being made. You're the managers of school improvement. The decision makers for school improvement is another group that you'll convene called the School Improvement Council. The School Improvement Council we really want to have a wide variety of perspectives on. We open the School Improvement Council to all teachers, and we love it when every teacher in the building is part of the council. It'll be open to all parents, it'll be open to all community members, really anybody who's interested or has a stake in raising student achievement. We want them to be on your council. So as you can imagine, your council could be quite large, but not to worry. We are going to provide you tools for consensus building where you can that you can use to reach a discussion quickly. As you can imagine, there may be times when there's resistance or debates that go on with this council. That's another place where we're going to be there with you, working with you to help you work through that resistance, or to help you help others come to consensus. So, but having this School Improvement Council have all these different perspectives at the table will really help you to make sound decisions. It's incredibly important. Before we started doing this, when we just worked with the steering team, what we found is that all the decisions, for the most part, were made by middle-class white folks, and in the majority of Indiana schools, at least. So in this situation, we want every voice to be at the table. Okay, so let's look at how that community council is going to have discussions. And this is new this year, so if you're a refresher school, this is the first time you're going to be using this. In the past, we used to have face-to-face discussions, very time-consuming. This year, we're going to have online discussions. So your council members will go to a website. They'll be able to watch a video that sets up the discussion for them. And then they'll be able to use a tool that's a lot like Facebook discussion, where they'll be able to go in and make a comment or agree with somebody else's comment, and that discussion thread will just happen. On some of these discussions, they'll also be able to click a link and your school's student data will pop up, so they could review the data and look at that before they start their part of the discussion. So I'm very excited about this. If you are a refresher school and you would like to continue to have your face-to-face meetings, either with a council or with your full faculty and your community council, you can still do it the old way if you'd like to. But we think that this will save you a lot of time and also get lots of additional folks involved in the discussion, because it doesn't involve going to a meeting. So very pleased with this. Okay, so here are the discussions that your council will have this year. There will be a discussion around, your vision, your goals, your root causes or what's getting in the way, and then what interventions you're going to put in place, and then what's the action plan. This is the preparation part. So those are the discussions, but we'll have all those discussions online, so we're pretty excited about that. Okay, then another part of the organizational structure is your student body. And this is, in my opinion, probably the strongest component of your organizational structure. The kids know what they need in order to achieve at a high level. They may not use the same terminology that educators use, like they're not going to say differentiated instruction, but they will describe differentiated instruction. So, so we really want to involve the kids and every student. So one of the things that you'll do as a steering team is to set up a structure where you can have whole school breakouts. It could be a whole school writing assignment or a whole school discussion. There will be, in most schools, a student facilitator, so you'll be working with your student council or a group of student leaders to lead these discussions. And then we also suggest that you have a student recorder that will record all of the responses. We'll provide training materials that you can use with the student facilitators and help you get that all set up. But this is a really rich part of the discussion. And then all of that input will also go into your decision making. So you've got input from your council, and then they'll have input from the students as they make decisions through those different steps. So very rich component. I love this part of SI2. Okay, and then here's the student discussions. You can see that they're also having five discussions, and then those discussions will feed into what the council is talking about as well. Okay, so that's the organizational structure, basically 3 parts: steering team, your council, and then your student body. Okay, so now let's look at the process. We will review the process each month, so you can see where that month's activities drop in the big picture, the big process. So right now we're in a step called getting ready. The person who initiated SIT in your school has already done the first step, put together the steering team, and then today we're working on task delegation, so that will be the step that we do today. In our next video we'll talk about recruiting your council members, and in the video after that we'll talk about collecting your data. So as we go through each of these steps, there will be a video that goes with it. So there's today's tasks. Then, I mentioned this, the next thing to do is to put your council together, and we'll talk about that in the next video, and then your data collection. Okay, so then in November, you'll have your first discussion with your council. And that discussion will just be an intro. It will actually be a lot like what we're doing on this video today. You'll be introducing SI2, explaining the organizational structure, the process, introducing terminology. It's just kind of getting everybody in gear. So that will happen in November. Then in December, you'll have your second discussion with the council about what is their dream for kids. You know, what do they believe all kids deserve? What do they think ideal adult practices are? What is their ideal student achievement data? So we'll talk about your dreams, and this is a beautiful step because it just gets everybody focused in the same direction, and it's focused on the future. We forget about the past. You know, we're just wanting to get to where we want to go. Then in January, we'll look at goals. This is where we've been off in, you know, dreamland, talking about vision. Now we want to come back to reality. So we'll look at your current achievement data, and then we'll think, okay, here's current, and we just talked about our dreams and our dream data. Now where's reality? Where can we get a year from now? So if your current data is that, you know, 72% of your students are passing I-STEP or ECA, you know, maybe your goal would be that you move to 74% within the next 2 years or next 1 year. So we're setting realistic goals, and goals are always a step between the reality where you are now and the dream where that vision is. So we'll help you identify primary areas for improvement, broad areas, and then we'll also help you look at developing SMART goals. SMART goals are very specific. They identify which students are going to improve, exactly what benchmark do you want them to get to, and by what date. So it'll be very concrete, specific SMART goals. So then after we have those goals in place, the next discussion is, okay, what's going to get in the way? Why aren't more students earning a 3 or better in an AP test? Why aren't more kids reading at grade level? And you'll start to look at your root causes, and we'll bring data into this step as well. So we'll help you do a study, and part of that study involves surveying your students, your faculty, your parents, and your community members. And we're going to ask people to kind of evaluate where they think your school is in terms of your implementation of what we call our elements of high achieving schools. That's based on our 20 years of experience plus a literature review. And then we'll also help you look at the degree to which your school is doing the turnaround principles. And then we'll look at all of that data and say, okay, what's getting in the way of our goals? You know, where are we missing the boat? Where do we need to improve so that we can reach our goals? So we'll do those surveys. There's also some short answer questions that we'll have you look at. And then all of that data will go to your council. They'll dig through the data and look for the stories in the data to help identify the areas in your school where you need to improve. Then in March, we'll start looking for, okay, what are we going to do about it? If we know that student engagement is an issue in our building, then how do we fix that? So we'll start shopping for interventions. We'll start exploring interventions. We'll give you lots of different resources for starting to do that. And one of the resources is a conference that we have called the Indiana Conference on Learning, where we feature practitioners who have implemented interventions to address the more common root causes, to address the more common things that are getting in the way of increasing student achievement. So it might be curriculum rigor, it might be student engagement, it might be how schools provide extra help for kids. The conference is really a step in the process. It's a way to make you aware of best practices, proven practices that are out there that other schools are using. So you'll come to the conference to shop for interventions, to shop for best practices. You'll also get to meet people that are doing these things so that you can later follow up with them if you have questions about implementing these things at your school. So that's just one of the tools that we'll give you to help you explore proven practices or interventions. We decided to turn this into a conference. There will be 2 keynotes. We always get keynotes that are leading edge at the national level. You can see by some of our past keynotes there that we get in some pretty big names to present. So, and we also opened this conference up to the entire state. You don't have to be involved in SI2 to participate in the conference, but it really is a step in the process for SI2 schools. Okay, so then after you know what your interventions are, now we need to get ready to implement them and implement them with integrity. So in this last step, we're looking at, okay, what professional development do our teachers need so that they can do these interventions? When are the interventions going to happen? Let's get them on the calendar. And do we need resources? Do we need funding? Do we need materials? Do we need a resource of time? Do we need to reschedule our days so that we can get those, more time in order to do these interventions? So the last step is designed to really make sure that those interventions get in place fully and with integrity. And then finally, the last part out there on the right is action. That's just implementing the plan. Okay, so we will provide you with lots of tools, and that's, I think, one of the real benefits for being involved with SI2 is that any time over the past 20 years we've been doing this, when a school says, it could really help if we had this, we then create it. So all of the tools that you're going to see were suggested at one time or another by a school, and then we added it to our collection of tools. So first of all is the website. Each school's website is customized for your needs. The way we do the customization, and the person who convened your steering team has already done this. If not, we need to make sure they do it ASAP. Is to go to the uses page, and then they just check off, are we going to use our school improvement plan for PL 221? Has DOE designated us as a priority or focus school? Are we a Title I school? Each time you click one of these boxes, your school's online system gets customized so that it drops in the different school improvement requirements of these initiatives, and then forces you to develop them so that something can't be forgotten. So, okay, so that's the uses page. This is the process page. I'm going to go into that in a little bit more depth later, but basically this is just a to-do list for the entire year that starts out, with read the introduction. That right now this webinar is step 1. Where is it? 1.6. Watch the steering team webcast. So we're doing step 1.6 right now. There's also different icons that you'll see there where you can enter information. Like today I'll show you how to enter the steering team positions. That's the icon you'll click to enter them. Then there's a report icon. And then if your school has asked us to provide the additional support for you, the human support for you, that last icon is a submit button. That tells our staff that you're ready for us to review your work. We review it against our rubric and also the rubric for PL 221 or Title or the other organization's rubrics, and then we'll give you feedback, written feedback. Our feedback always comes within 48 hours. We're again, having been educators, we know how important it is for you to get immediate feedback. So within 48 hours, you'll have something in writing from us. Okay, then at the bottom of each section, I also wanted to point out that there is a rubric item, and a rubric icon, and when you click on this, it lets you know what the standards are for that item, and then you can check to make sure you met those standards before you submit the work to us. Okay, also on this rubric icon is the place where you get the feedback. So in other words, here might be typical feedback for what you're doing today, steering team positions. Our staff would have checked off that you met all those rubric items, and then we'll put in comments. Great job of putting together your steering team. The parent and rep from Economic Development Council will be able to help you recruit community members for your school improvement council. So that that's I think very nice that you can get that written feedback right there when it comes from our staff. Okay, additional tools. I mentioned maybe earlier that we will auto-populate achievement data that we can pull from other organizations' websites into your school improvement plan. So when you go in, you'll see a data table that looks like this. This happens to be for ISTEP. That shows you the raw number of students, how many are in the student group, and then how many met each of the benchmarks, and then we've also calculated the percentages for you. And again, you don't have to do anything on this. Our system opens up DOE's website for your school, the public pages. We pull that data off of DOE's public pages and we stick it in here. Or in some cases, organizations will send us a data dump and we just dump it in the system for you. So, and just a reminder that we don't disaggregate any data when there's fewer than 10 students for confidentiality purposes. Okay, then if there's additional data tables that you want that we don't have in the system, we've given you a wizard where you can create them. So if you're using NWEA or Terra Nova or some other assessment, then you can just create that table and then drop in the data in. All of the surveying that we do is online. So this is just a kind of a sample of a 12th grade survey. I expect to earn the Indiana Core 40 diploma. I expect to continue my education after high school. So all of the different items there that align with our elements of high achieving schools, and again, the questions you're seeing are on expectations. They check those. Implementation calendar. After you have your school improvement plan all in the system, you can print out a to-do list or this calendar, and it just kind of walks you through for the following school year all the different steps you need to do to make sure that your school improvement plan is not just on the shelf, that it's actually getting implemented. A nice feature that we have is crosswalk reports. There's several of these. You're looking at one with that's a crosswalk report between DOE's turnaround principles. So what we've done, like in this case, is the turnaround principles are there on the left. The school's interventions are at the top, and then we're just indicating for you which turnaround principles are being met by which interventions. So again, it's just something that's easy for you to evaluate your strategies with, your interventions with. Another feature of the system is that after everything's in, you can just push one button and our system will take everything out of the computer and put it into a document. It's a PDF that includes everything you need in a school improvement plan. So your vision, your goals, who was involved in writing the plan, it's just a school improvement plan. But the nice thing is that all you have to do is push a button and it comes out. Once you get it, you can also, you have the ability to edit it. So if you don't exactly like the format that we use, you can change it. So, okay. Also, another thing you're able to do is to create a public website that posts all the different parts of your school improvement plan. A lot of our schools do this, and then from their school's website, they'll just link to this page to show their public what their school improvement plan contains. We also provide you with a steering team manual. So lots of tools. So let's go on now and look at your leadership development, your steering team development. And again, if you're a refresher school, this is kind of a new approach that I'm very pleased with. So for professional development this year, your school will be joining a cohort of schools in a virtual learning community. So it's a small learning community. We think our schools have just as much to learn from each other as they have to learn from us. We have watched over the past couple of years many of our schools starting to use a flipped curriculum, flipped classroom, where for homework students receive content and then they come to class to discuss the content. And so we've loved watching schools that have done that. Schools that are doing that really just rave about how effective that is. So we're going to start doing our professional development that way. So it's going to be flipped professional development. So here's how it will work. Each month you'll watch a monthly video like you are right now. And then about a week after the video comes out, there will be an online discussion with your small learning community. And that will happen through a webinar. So you're watching this video right now. About a week from the time that this video has come out will be the webinar. So your team will participate in that webinar, and then after that webinar, then you'll be ready to facilitate discussions at home. And you'll be using our online tools then to have those discussions at home. So the content's going to come in the video, then we'll all talk about it during the webinars, and then you'll do it after that. And then also with professional development, we will, for schools that have are working with us not only for our basic services but also our support services, you'll still have that. You will have that written feedback. And again, you know, sometimes we ask you to redo work. Sometimes, you know, we say, man, this is great. It meets all of the criteria that we're looking for. Or sometimes we give you tips if we think you're headed down a road that might get you in trouble, you know, a few months from now. You'll submit your work to us, and then we'll provide you with that feedback. So very excited about this. I think throughout the year, especially our refresher schools will, in our new schools, will kind of coach us in how well this is working, and we'll just really fine-tune this as we go this year. Okay, so while you're watching those videos, what we would suggest is you watch the videos as a steering team. All together. You can also watch them individually, but I think there's going to be parts where we're going to ask you to pause the video and then have a discussion as a steering team. And if you're all together, I think that would be really helpful, especially for our new schools. Okay, so then after each of the videos, we'd like to suggest that you make a plan right there while you're watching it. Make a plan for completing the month's tasks, assign your responsibilities, put activities on the calendar. If you need to meet again, set a time and a date to do that. And then make sure that everybody is registered for the webinar, and write down any questions that you want to make sure that you ask during the webinar. So that's kind of it. And again, you know, I really think that if the steering team is having a short meeting monthly to watch the video, and then discuss it, and to make sure that all the tasks are assigned and everybody's up to speed, I think that's really going to be powerful in terms of the quality of your work. So here are the small learning community webinars. Basically, there's one each month. We have sent your team an email listing the specific dates and time for your small learning community. But basically there's one a month. Okay, in terms of PL 221, especially for our new schools, we wanted to just make sure that everybody understood that ASE, our organization, is approved by the Indiana State Board of Education as a technical support provider for PL 221. And what that means is that we have the authority to certify to DOE that your school's improvement plan meets the requirements of PL 221. And any school that we certify, DOE does not conduct a second review. They don't read your plan. We send them a list in the summer of all the schools that have met all of the components of PL 221, and they take our word for it since we're approved, and then they don't do a second read. A lot of schools have told us they like this because with our work you get multiple chances to redo things that aren't quite up to snuff based on the feedback that we give you. So you know that when you have a plan at the end of the year, I mean, it's a high quality plan, and it definitely meets all the requirements for PL 221. Okay, so we keep trying to think of the questions that you might have. You might be asking, okay, how come I'm involved in this? Why was I selected to be a steering team member? First of all, we had requirements for steering team members. We talked about this earlier. So you are either the principal or a steering team or a teacher or economic development rep, school counselor, parent. The other thing we wanted you to be aware of is that you were specifically invited to be on the steering team because you had the ability, you had one of these characteristics, at least one. You're able to allocate resources, you have credibility in your building, you're a natural leader, you're a natural teacher, or in the case of the principal, you have the authority to drop the hammer. So we found that when there's at least one steering team member that has each of these things, the steering team can be really powerful. The other thing that we asked the person convening your steering team was to look for folks that had a history of change making. Could be changes at school, but it could also be changes in a youth service organization that you're involved with, or you're a faith-based organization, but just somewhere along the way you've been a change maker in your community. The other thing that we asked the person convening your steering team to do was to look for people that were worker bees. And we really stressed this with the person that was convening your steering team. We told them to look for people that are task-oriented, responsible, they do high-quality work, they complete work on time, and they're a team player. These are really important because in a few minutes we're going to start delegating tasks. And if you aren't a worker bee and you don't do your task, everything falls through. Then somebody else has got to do your task. And if they don't notice that the work wasn't getting done, then everybody's behind, things are out of order, it's just a mess. So it's really important when we delegate tasks that you are a worker bee, that you get the work done, it's good work, and you've completed it on time. That's incredibly important. So you're on your steering team because you're a worker bee. And that caution sign there is just again to emphasize that you need to be a worker bee on this steering team. Okay, so now let's look at delegating the steering team tasks. So here are the types of jobs that need to happen. One is somebody's got to be thinking about and working with the other steering team members, but it needs to be one person's responsibility to think about what achievement data do we have, what do we want to collect, what do we want to monitor, what do we not want to monitor. So somebody's going to kind of be organizing the achievement data part of this. A second person is looking at the root cause self-studies, the root cause data. A third person is the student body point person, council discussions, council consensus, and intervention development. So let's look at each of those in more depth. And again, got to have worker bees because each of these tasks have to happen in order for school improvement to occur. Okay, so the first one we're looking at is the achievement data point person. So of those of you who are watching this right now, one person on your steering team needs to take on this responsibility. So the tasks are to determine, not all by yourself, but with the steering team, if additional achievement data should be monitored. So we have certain data points that we'll ask you to monitor, but then we know that your school may give Terra Nova or NWEA, and so we're going to want to think about, is there other data that we should be monitoring in our school improvement? Then, as needed, this person would create the data tables in the online system, and then you would enter aggregate data into the online system. So we're not entering individual student data, but we're entering data for all of the boys or all of the students who are free and reduced lunch or all students in total. So this person, the achievement data point person, it has to be a school person because of FERPA and confidentiality. So the only restriction on this one is that it has to be a school person. Okay, the second task is the root cause data point person. So this is where we're trying to discover what's getting in the way of achievement. So this person would coordinate the online surveying of these groups, student body, faculty, parents, and community members, and those are, in our rubric, that's the percentage of folks that we want you to survey. So this person is actually never going to touch any data. The data just goes automatically into our system, so it doesn't matter who this is. This does not have to be a school person. But it's somebody who's going to organize all the surveying, and in most cases this person actually will create a little committee where one person, or task force, not really a committee, a task force, where one person will be in charge of making sure all the students survey. Another person will be in charge of making sure all the faculty surveys, or all the parents and community members. When we get to this point in a couple videos from now, we'll give you lots of tips about how to survey all these people. We have a lot of years and years and years of experience with getting people to survey, and we'll give you some tips about how other schools have done this successfully. So, and then the other part is there is a series of short answer questions that will feed into this data study. And again, this person normally will put together a little task force of their friends, and they'll say, okay, Jane, you do questions 1 through 10, Susie, you do questions 11 through 20. So they're kind of coordinating all of that data entry. This is an undertaking. That's why we only do it every 3 years in cycle 1. But it's you'll be glad you did it. There's the data that you look at. When we have these meetings face-to-face to look at the data, we can't get people to go to lunch if it's a workshop, because the data is just so compelling, so many stories in that data. So this is one of my favorite steps. I love this part. But anyway, so this person would be in charge of making sure that all the root cause data gets into the system. The root cause data section also happens in the fall, so this person's work would be primarily in the fall, and their work would be really a whole, very, very, very light in the spring. Same with the achievement data point person. Okay, the student body point person. Their tasks are to coordinate monthly student discussions. And so what that means is they'll be securing a teacher or a student discussion facilitator. We have found that even 4th graders are very capable of facilitating these discussions. In a lot of our schools, I have to kind of chuckle, the students will go into each classroom to facilitate these discussions, and in a lot of our schools the teachers will actually step out into the hallway, so the students are completely on their own. The teachers are there kind of listening to make sure, see if things get out of hand, but it's totally student run. So they're training the student discussion facilitators. Will provide you materials for doing that. Then they're arranging for the monthly student discussions. And again, I think what probably most of our schools do is they'll just once a month, like the first month, they'll take 30 minutes out of first period. The second month, they'll take 30 minutes out of second period to have these brief student discussions about school improvement. Remember, there's just 5 discussions. And other schools have turned this into writing prompts and actually aligned it with achievement standards. So, that's just another way to do this. Again, we want every student to be involved in these discussions. And then the last part is it's very, very important that the students understand that we've heard them. So we want this person also to think about, how am I going to share all the input with all the students? And what an easy thing that a lot of schools do is they'll the flip charts that all of the ideas have been written on, they'll just take those flip charts and they'll line the hallways with them. And they say it's amazing that the kids, will be stopping and reading what other kids said to the discussion prompts. In some schools, they share 1 idea a day on the morning announcements. So, just lots of different ways to do this, and our schools have been very creative about how to let kids know that they've been heard. Okay, the next point person is the council discussion point person. Remember, all of the discussions are online. So each month, this person would determine when the discussion window is going to be. So, and then at the beginning of the discussion window, they would push a button and everybody in the council will automatically get an email saying, okay, discussion's open, go here to see the prompt and the materials, and then enter your into the discussion feed. And then they'll also determine when that discussion window is going to close. So they'll enter that into the online system. They'll monitor the online discussions. We want to make sure that if things for some reason do get heated, that we can jump in there and convene. Again, we work really hard to predict resistance and to head it off before it happens, but if it starts to happen, we want to make sure that we get in there real quickly, or you get in there real quickly with our help to kind of calm things down and make sure it's a healthy discussion. The other thing is, theoretically there could be something inappropriate that gets posted, and we'll give you a tool that you can delete that. But probably what could happen is that people don't engage in the discussions, and if that's the case, we'll also provide you tools where you can push a button and send out a mass email to all of the council members to remind them to participate in the discussion. And then finally, this person will summarize the discussion threads. I don't know if you remember when I showed that slide earlier, but if somebody makes a comment, your council will have the ability to agree with that comment. So if you have one comment that everybody has agreed with, then that needs to be brought out in the summary. So that you'll write a discussion summary of kind of what people thought during this discussion, and then we'll give you a place in the online system where you'll enter that. If you are a refresher school, this replaces the minutes that you used to put in for your face-to-face meetings. Okay, so that's that point person. Then the next one is the council consensus point person. That person, after all the input comes in, you'll need to create a product. And the product will be either things like a vision statement, your goals, your root causes, and your interventions. So the person who's in charge of this will develop those products. My recommendation would be that you do that as a steering team, but this person is in charge of it. So you're making sure these products are developed, and then we're sending them out to the School Improvement Council for their consensus. That is really important. We never want your council to think, oh, we put all this time into this discussion and the steering team's just going to do whatever they want to anyway. So we want to make sure that the council has the ability to stop the process anytime they want to, and we want to make sure that whatever you're coming up with, it's something that everybody can live with and support publicly. They don't have to love it, but live with and support publicly. If you don't have consensus, then what happens, again, we're looking at resistance and where it can occur. Folks will be, if you don't have consensus, you've gone on without somebody, then they'll be in the grocery store, talking about you and how this isn't really, a good process because the steering team just does whatever they want to. So that reaching consensus was really important. And then finally, after you have the consensus, you would just enter the product into the online system. So that's that. And then those products become your school improvement plan. Okay, then the final point person is the intervention point person. This person is going to be busy in the second semester, but will be lighter in the first semester. So what they're going to do is, with the steering team, we're into implementation now, so we're not involving the council at this point. This is just steering team. With the steering team, we're going to determine what's needed to get ready for this, for each of the interventions. So what professional development do you need? Do you need materials? How are you going to get them? Do you need funding? How are you going to get them? And for some of your interventions, or maybe all of them, you might want to appoint a teacher chair for that intervention who is responsible for making sure that all the teachers are up to snuff for that one intervention, that everybody's doing it, that they're a person that people can go to ask questions of, or for coaching. So those are some of the things that during preparation, the intervention development, that this point person would be doing. And then if there are materials or funding that's needed with the steering team, that person would be going after those interventions. Okay, so before we talk about submissions, I guess that about does it there. Good. So submissions. So those are the point persons, and then we want to look at this month what submissions are due, and then we want to look at the rubric for them, and we'll do that every month. So the only thing we're doing this month is putting together, well, there's two things we're doing this month. In this video, we're just talking about the steering team, and so what you'll be submitting is your steering team roster. There is the rubric items, and yep, I'm going to switch to this slide. There are the rubric items. The roster includes the 6 people we're looking for, and then it includes those people's contact information. And then the things in black should already be done. Probably the person that convened your steering team has already done those things. But what we need to add to that now is that a contact person has been assigned. So your contact person is really just a liaison to SI. Oftentimes it's a teacher, it could be the principal, it doesn't matter. It's just if we need to call somebody, you know, who do you want us to call? And then all point positions have been assigned. So we'll show you how to do that in a sec. Okay, so that brings us up to the online system. Let's look at that real quickly. Okay, so for many of you, this is the first time you've seen the online system. So to get into your school's password-protected online system, you go to this web address, www.asainstitute.org/SI2. So asainstitute.org/SI2. Then you'll hear us talk about the top navigation bar and the left navigation bar. Most often it'll be the left navigation bar. So in the left navigation bar, there's a link that says log in for steering teams. So you're going to click that button and then put in your school's username and password. Then click log in. And this is what you come up with. So this is the welcome page or the front page of your school's school improvement plan. And then you'll notice that there are a lot of tabs over here in the left navigation bar. Pretty much, I'd like to suggest or recommend that really the only one you need to pay attention to, the only tab, is the process tab. And quite frankly, when I'm working in this system, that's normally 99% of the time where I go. The rest of these tabs are shortcut tabs, and you might find later that, you know, as you're getting used to the system more, that you can go over and just take a shortcut and not have to go through the process page. But the process page is, I would just recommend always staying there. Also, you can imagine with an entire school improvement initiative in this online system, there are so many places and parts to this online system that it's possible to get lost. So if you ever get lost in the system, just come back to the process page, and that will get you to a good place. So I'm going to start out by clicking on the process page, and that's going to open up this page. And you can see this is just a to-do list. It gives you all the steps to do and then the tools to do them, where you can enter the information, how to print reports, where to submit them to our staff if you've signed up for the additional services. Oops, didn't mean to uncheck that. So you can see that some of these, when you go in, are probably already checked as being steps that are completed. The person that convened your steering team, we hope, has done all these steps, the last step being that they entered the steering team members into the online system, and we showed them how to do that in the last video. So what you need to do then to complete this part of the process is just to watch the video that you're watching now. When you finish watching it, check it off and save. Then you're going to appoint your primary contact. Notice that there is a icon in the Enter column. When I click on that, I see my 6 steering team members. I just pick the one that I want to be the contact and then hit Save. So now that step is done. I'm going to hit the Process tab to go back, and I've got my primary contact in, so that's done. Then on steering team positions, I'm going to hit, whoops, let me go back. I've entered the primary contact, and I need to submit that to let the ASA, our staff, know that you're ready for us to check off that you've done that. So I'm going to hit the Submit button. That takes me to a page like this. I can check off, you know, who's doing the submission, and then I can click, what the submission is. There'll be a drop-down arrow there that you can do that, and then I'm just confirming that we're ready for ASA to check it, and then hit submit, and that gives our staff a flag that they should be looking at your work. Okay, then on steering team positions, I'm going to go to Enter, and here are all the different point positions, and then when you hit the drop-down button, you just pick the person that you want to do each one of those. Let's see if I can get them all in here without duplicating. Who have I left out? John. Okay, so we've got a steering team member assigned to each point position. I'm going to save, and I get a notice up here that the changes are saved. Go back to the process page and click off that we've done that. And then save. And then on rubric items, I can open this up. This gives me the rubric report, and the rubric items will be in there. Okay, and back to the process tab. Okay, so that's pretty much the online system. If you ever want to see where you're headed for the rest of the year, you can just scroll down, and you can see the next thing we're going to do is convene the council. We'll also do that in September. Then in October, we're going to collect data. In November, we're going to have the first discussions with your student body and your council. That one will be just an introduction. Then we'll talk with them about vision, achievement goals, root causes, and interventions. And then the last step is to prepare to implement. So I always like to caution on this page, sometimes it looks like, there's just a lot of steps here, and I always fear it can appear overwhelming. But you saw how quickly I ran through these steps. We've just taken each step and made micro steps out of it just to make sure that little thing is getting done. So really there's 9 steps, and then just all the little micro parts of each step. And again, you saw how quickly this does. So after you've gone in, those rubric items will be there when you look. You'll read through the rubric items, yes, I've read it, and then save, and then I'm finished with getting organized with my steering team. And then we'll work on getting your council established. Okay, so that's it for the online system. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. And just a few more things. So at the end of each of these videos, we'd like to suggest that you then make a plan. First of all, if you need help anywhere, we have a wonderful staff. Our staff member who is assigned to SI2 as the help person, the strategic planning specialist, is Mary Beth Granderson. Her phone number is there on the screen, and as well as her email address. Mary Beth is wonderful. She has been with our staff for almost 10 years. She has worked with hundreds, literally, of steering teams in a couple of different initiatives, but she's full-time SI2 this year. She has learned from other schools. She's learned from, just having on-the-job learning. I mean, she's very, very, very good. She's also very nice and very patient, so never feel that you're bothering her, please. Always, feel that you can just pick up the phone any time and just give her a call. We do have, for the new schools, we have this rule that we call the 5-minute rule, and we're extremely serious about it. This is a must-do. And that rule is, if you are ever confused for more than 5 minutes, you are required to call Mary Beth. That's a requirement. It's part of working with ASA. You got to do it. So we, as I mentioned, we are all educators. We have all been part of school improvement teams in our schools, and we know that teachers and principals, you don't have a lot of time. We don't want you to waste your time being confused, so we have made it a high priority to keep our staff to school ratio small enough that you can get a response ideally right away. The only time Mary Beth wouldn't be there at the phone calling you is if she happens to be out at a workshop somewhere with us. So otherwise, she's at the phone, ready to read your submissions, ready to give you written feedback on those, ready to take your phone calls. I mean, she is your person. So please use her. Okay, so we'd like you to make a plan. First of all, we would like you to determine which steering team member is going to be the liaison to ASA. We'd like you to determine which steering team members will serve as each of the point positions, and then enter that contact person in the point positions into the online system. Finally, if you would determine who will attend next week's webinar, and ideally we would like your whole steering team to attend. In that webinar there will be points where we ask you to pause the webinar and have a steering team discussion, so it would really be nice if your whole steering team was there. And then also they'll need to register for that webinar online. And let me see here. Yeah, let me go back. Don't think I showed you where to do that. Let's go back real quickly. When it's in this section right here, you'll see the word participate in each month. And so on this participate in SI2 learning community, and this is the one you'll do for next week's webinar, you'll just click register. That will take you to GoToWebinar, which is the tool that we use to conduct our webinars. And you just enter in the information and then click register, and then they will send you as an email with the information that you need to register. We would like each person participating to register individually. That gives us an idea of how many people are listening. Okay. Now let's go back to the PowerPoint. And that's it. So I'm going to leave this slide on and finish with this slide, so you could if you wanted to, you could pause this here and now have this discussion as your steering team. Who's going to be your point person? I'm sorry, who's going to be the contact person, and then who's going to take on each of those tasks. So I think that's it. Don't forget to register for the webinar next week, and we will talk to you then. And the webinars will be live. The webinars will not be archived because we want everybody to feel that they can speak freely, but these webcasts will be archived. Okay, I think that's it. Call Mary Beth if you need help, and we'll go from there.